Hello, everybody, and welcome to this What's New in ForNAV webinar, where we will take you through some of the recent updates in ForNAV. Little housekeeping before we get started. This webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And if you have questions as we go along, please use the question or Q&A tool in GoToWebinar, and then we will take the questions and answers either as we go along or at the end of this session. So we have a number of exciting news in the ForNAV product, basically covering all areas in our products. So there are some updates to the standard reports. There's things related to the designer and the toolbox. We have a pretty substantial part of the webinar about direct print and file access, and there are also some updates to e-invoicing. And of course, as always, you can try it yourself. You can download a free trial either on our website or on AppSource and see the things for yourself. But let's jump into it. So I'd like to hand over to you, Renee.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you, Jan.
It's okay.
Too many names on my screen. Right, there we go. So today I will tell you about the recent changes and updates we have made in our Business Central extensions. One of the major updates we have done recently is the move from custom report layouts to tenant layouts, but there are many more major and minor updates, so we'll go through the full list of what's been going on. First of all, we are working on the ForNAV e-invoicing. The ForNAV e-invoicing has been around for a while with support for Zugwert, Ex-Rechnung, etc. For the latest release, we have updated the e-invoicing to be compliant with all the latest standards. We are currently in the process of adding support for transport across the PEPL network, and of course there's also the option of manually transporting your invoices via email. The best thing, ForNAV e-invoicing including the PEPL transport are included in the ForNAV license at no extra cost. If you want to learn more about the ForNAV e-invoicing, we did a full webinar a week ago. That's on our ForNAV YouTube channel, and you can find it, and you will be able to see everything about the e-invoicing, including PEPL, in detail. As we all know, a few years ago, Microsoft stopped support for DLLs and extensions as part of the Universal Code initiative, and this forced us to do a complex redesign of ForNAV. And because of this redesign, the upgrade from the DLL-based customizable report pack to the new Universal Code version, including any and all DLL-based custom reports, is less straightforward than we would really like. We have made this upgrade as easy as possible with a step-by-step wizard and good documentation. So it should be a matter of just following the steps, and that should fix everything. If you do have any questions, or if you wonder which versions, or if your version of Business Central is supported for Universal Code, just drop us a line at support@fornav.com and we will help you out further. Then one of the major parts of our updates in the past year is the move from custom layouts to tenant layouts. We all know and love the old custom report layouts, but they have recently been replaced with tenant layouts. And this is something that has mostly happened under the radar. And for anybody who uses ForNAV reports, pretty much everything has kept on working like it always did. But in Business Central 2024 release wave 1, the tenant layouts became mandatory. They've been around in the Business Central database for a while, and they have been there and used in Business Central 23. But from 2024 release wave 1 or BC24, they have become mandatory, and everything has been converted automatically. The upgrade in BC24 and up is done by Microsoft. So if you upgrade any database from BC23 to anything higher, Microsoft will automatically convert all of your custom report layouts to tenant layouts. With ForNAV, if you install the latest version of ForNAV on top of BC24 or above, we do some post-upgrade changes to make sure that everything works perfectly with ForNAV. If you install ForNAV 7.3 or above in Business Central 23, ForNAV will do the conversion to tenant layouts for you, and that is because ForNAV is fully compatible with tenant layouts. That means we have completely dropped support of custom layouts, so everything is moved to tenant layouts without any backward compatibility to the custom layouts. We wanted to have the best possible support of these new tenant layouts, and therefore we have redesigned a lot of the ForNAV report layout functionality. And for this reason, the ForNAV reports page in BC23 and above looks and behaves different than before. We have also made many invisible improvements in this area, and unfortunately we cannot backport these improvements to the older custom layouts based versions of ForNAV, so anything BC22 or lower, and that's because it's simply not compatible. The tenant layouts, even though the functionality is exactly the same, you can still create custom layouts, store them in a database and switch them based on which layouts you select. The software that does that is completely different than it used to be. The tables are slightly different, so there is simply no way of backporting everything and making sure everything works. So we have decided that for BC22 and down, everything would stay the same. Everything works. It's just that you don't get the latest and greatest bits unless you upgrade to BC23 and above. So the report pack enhancements, they focus, of course, mainly on the new report card, and that is created because of the new tenant layouts and the report health check, and both I will show inside Business Central. Let's start with the new report card. So in the ForNAV reports, this page has been kept the same with one major difference. You can now drill down on the customer list and you will find that the old custom layouts stuff and the old import export stuff has been disappeared, has been moved from here. We have replaced all of that with a new report card. And if I drill down into that, you will find that we give you as much information as possible about your report. So we have the name and the some archive stuff that we've always had. We have the report health, which I will dig into later on. And then we have the bits that we have spent a lot of time on working on, mainly the report layouts. So which layouts are in our system and which layouts are activated. Let's start with the report layouts. Every report comes with the built-in layout. The built-in layout is the report layout that is stored inside the, in this case, ForNAV extension. So they are created in and maintained in the extension Visual Studio Code project, and they cannot be changed from inside Business Central. That is why if I select the built-in layout, you cannot design or delete it. It simply won't work because it is stored in the extension. You can't do anything with it. But of course, you can create a new layout and modify that. So what you can do is simply hit copy, and that will give us a new ForNAV custom layout. And of course, you can design that one. Let's open this one. The other one is orange, so let's make this one blue. I can save as a custom layout on server, or I can still save as a custom layout and activate. That has not been changed. Anything inside the ForNAV designer obviously looks at the new tenant layout tables, but in functionality has not changed. So that has changed my custom layout. I can preview that from in here, and I get the blue layout. And of course, when I preview the orange layout, you will find that I get the orange layout. So that's the individual layouts. Now the next step is which layouts to activate. You will see right here that the layout that is activated is the My Layout. And the layout that is activated in the copiers company, which is just a quick copy that I did, is the ForNAV customer list.docx. So in the activated layouts, we give you all of the companies that are in your database, and from one place in Business Central, whatever company you're in, you can change the activated layout for all of the underlying companies, which is great. If I drill down into this, you will see the list of layouts that I can use, that I can activate, and you will see that the orange layout is not in this list. And that's because I have drilled down from the copiers company, and the orange layout is activated only for Kronos AG. If I want to change that, I can simply click on the Kronos, my layout, delete the company, and I can now use it in any company that I want to. One quirkiness that is inside the new tenant layout is that you can manually activate the built-in layout. So I can manually activate the ForNAV customer list.docx, and it will look like this. ForNAV customer list is activated. This activates the built-in layout. I can also activate nothing at all. This does not activate any specific layout, which means that Business Central and ForNAV will use the built-in layout. So there's two ways of selecting the built-in layout. You can select the built-in layout, or you can select no layout at all. And if you drill down into the ForNAV layout page, you can change the layout name and the description. And you can change the company name. So now my blue layout is has the description blue, and it is called My Blue Layout, and it is only available in the Copiers AG company. You can only select one company for a layout, or every company. So you cannot set a layout to be used in a selected or filtered set of companies. It is one or everything. Let's close this one and drill down into the invoice, because we have some special layouts in the system, which are the layouts to create an email body. If I select that one, this is a custom layout that is built, that is created into the system whenever you install ForNAV. But because we need this and we don't want you to delete it, you cannot actually delete the layout to create an email body. You can only design it. What you can do is the sales invoice is used in some report selections. In this case, the sales invoice. From here, you can change the email body layout in the report selections. And starting from Business Central 24, you can actually change your report layout based on the report selection. So you can use the one layout for the sales invoice and a different layout for another report, which I think adds a lot of flexibility. That's just standard Business Central, and we have embedded that inside the ForNAV layout, so you can simply choose to always use the, for instance, the bank account demo for the report selections. Let's switch that back because I need this to be empty for a demo that I will do later on. So those are the main bits on the new report card. The next bit is the health check. And if I look at this report, I am connected to a development database. And in this development database, we have created a report that is broken deliberately. And we broke this report deliberately because we needed to test our new report health. So if I open this report, you will see that the health status is error, and errors exist. You can redo the health check right here. Health check always runs async, so it runs in the background, so it won't impact you if it runs a bit longer. It says errors exist. Click here for a full list, so let's do that, and that gives me the full list of all of the errors that I have for this specific report. And what we filter on, what we try to find, is things like obsolete tables and fields. What we found in the past couple of years that we have used these custom layouts, or now tenant layouts, in the Business Central database, And the problem is that if you create a report in Visual Studio Code, if you maintain that in Visual Studio Code, so if you update that to a later version of Business Central, Visual Studio Code will tell you that the data items or records that you use inside the AL object of the report will be obsoleted, yes or no. Inside ForNAV, we can do an awful lot just inside the ForNAV layout. We can add data items, we can add records, we can do all sorts of things. And what we found was that sometimes users created custom layouts, added data items or fields or whatever, and all of a sudden the layout would stop working because the record that the layout was built on was all of a sudden obsoleted by either Microsoft or the ISV that created it. So we needed something to tell you that, listen, you built this layout, but something is going to be obsoleted at some point in the near future. And that is why we created the ForNAV health check. If you look into this, you will see that in this case, the first one is the table obsolete. We have an integer not filtered. You can add an integer data item to a ForNAV report. If you don't filter it, it will start counting into infinity. So the report layout won't work. That's why we've added this. We have another table obsolete. We have a field obsolete. The error information will give you some in-depth information about what is going on. And if you drill down into this record, you will find detailed error information. You will find detailed fix information. You will find detailed information about the report, which app it is in. You will find detailed information about the table and field that are going to be obsoleted. So in this case, it's the ForNAV test obsolete table, which is never going to be released into production, but it is in my test system. And this field is going to be obsoleted, and the obsolete reason is because the field is no longer needed. And it is in the ForNAV core development E4, which is our development system, and the publisher is ForNAV. So it will give you all of the information that you need to fix this issue. You can open the record, and that will give you the ForNAV layout. In this case, it is the built-in layout, so I can't actually change it. I need to change this inside VS Code. But if this wasn't the built-in layout, then I could just simply open the layout, make the changes, save it, and see if it works again. In some cases, you don't want to see these warnings. In some cases, maybe the field has been increased in length, or for whatever reason, you're not interested in seeing this message again. In that case, you can add an exception that will give you the exception wizard, where you can choose if you want to change, if you want to add the exception for this report or for every report. You can add the exception for the entire table or for just this field. And you can tell why this was done. This is a test in the webinar. I can enable or disable the exception, and it will always log who has created this exception, which in this case is me, the admin. And that means that this error message will never show up again. If you go to the ForNAV setup page, we have a slightly improved version of the health check there. You might have noticed it run in the background earlier, and it says errors exist, click for the full list. I go there, and you will notice that the error that I just had, that I just created an exception for, is gone. What I do have right here is a new error message, an error message that has nothing to do with a report that is in the system. It says you used to have a report 90,101. The report is gone, but there are still custom layouts for that report inside the system. This means that if I now create a new report 90,101 with a completely different data set, then there is going to be a report, a custom layout in the system that will simply not work. So what you should do is hit open record and either delete it or back it up or change it or do anything with it to prevent this from being a problem in the future. What you can also do right here is you can see that there are 4 exceptions in the system. Those are the exceptions that I did in the webinar this morning and the webinar just now. But there are also some ForNAV system exceptions that we've added for you. In this case, let's make this bigger. In company information, the home page, the field is going to be increased in length. This is not something that I'm interested in because ForNAV won't break on that. So we've added an exception right here, so it won't happen again. And it says that the VAT amount line is going to be made temporary. That's fine. It's already temporary in all ForNAV reports. So we've hidden that one as well. We hope this will give you a bit more information about what's going on in your reports and what might be problems right now and in the future. The next thing we have recently added is the HTML and text splitters. What we've heard many times is that people have added large bits of text and they get cut off at the end of the page. And that's because the ForNAV page, it couldn't split the text to the next page. So we have created a new HTML and text splitter, which splits either HTML formatted text, like you can create with the new text editors inside Business Central, or just plain text. And this will split long text across multiple pages, and it will split entity text like the item marketing text. It will do that automatically. If you have text in the ForNAV text storage, I'll show you that in a minute, it will split that automatically. And if you have any blob field in any table, you can hook the HTML splitter table into that, and it will split the HTML or plain text inside that blob field. So what does that look like? Let's go back to Business Central. Let's find our text storage, which is a table inside ForNAV. You will see that I have created a text here for the Responsibility Center Hamburg with the type terms, and it has some text, which is just some demo text with some colors that I've added into it to make everything clear. And you will see I have red until purple. So that is inside the system. I can hook that text into my ForNAV reports, like I did with the order. So let's have a look at that inside the ForNAV designer. You will see that I've created a new data item inside this report. Underneath that data item is the header and the text. Obviously the text is set to can grow, and the trick we have used is we have made this table temporary. Inside ForNAV we have a mechanism to populate temporary tables, which means that we control which data is put into that table. So you get virtual data in a table in Business Central, which means that creating reports is going to be easy enough because you can just drag the ForNAV text storage in there, and ForNAV will take care of all of the splitting for you. Obviously, I have linked this to the Responsibility Center on the header, and I have set the table view to be the type of terms. That means that if I now run this report, I have two orders in my database, one with the Responsibility Center and one without. You'll see right here I have a report without the Responsibility Center. I don't get my text. I have a report with Responsibility Center Hamburg, which means that the text is added. And you will see right here that ForNAV breaks the text into separate chunks, and it will create a one record per chunk, which means that it will break off the text at the end of the page and it will continue on the next page. If I wouldn't have done that, let's open this report. I set temporary to false. It also sets auto-populate to false. Auto-populate is the trigger that will automatically populate data inside our table. Hit preview, do the same to reports. You will find that the first report still doesn't have text, and the second report, the text doesn't start on the first page because there's simply not enough space there. It starts on the second page. It will show all of the text in one great big chunk, and it doesn't show the purple text because there's flat out no space for it, and it doesn't reserve space on the third page because that is not something that's built into ForNAV. So that's how you can create large bits of text and split them across multiple pages. This works for anything, for any type of HTML. The only thing it cannot split is tables. So if you have an HTML with a huge great big table, then ForNAV won't be able to split that because it simply doesn't know how to split those great big tables. Like I said, works for entity text, ForNAV text storage, or any blob field in any other extension. Then we have recently added some new label reports, the sales shipment labels, the production label, the sales order label, and the purchase receipt label. Those were already inside ForNAV, but they were not that easy to customize because they were built in and hooked into a separate label setup where you could easily customize bits of it, but you couldn't customize it like any other ForNAV report. So we have obsoleted those old labels. They're still in the database, so you can still use them, but they're obsolete and they won't show up in any list anymore. And we've created new labels which are easy to customize because you can simply create a custom layout for them. What we've also added in these label reports is a repeater table. This is also a temporary or virtual table that we have created that will automatically repeat based on whatever data you feed it. So by default, these new label reports can split or can repeat by item, by line, by unit of measure, or by tracking entry. So you can, for instance, say I want one label per lot number. That is perfectly possible. And what you can also do is this repeater is, like I said, a ForNAV temporary table. So you can use it in any report you want. So if you have your own labels, or if you just need one line per unit of measure or per item on your line, on your sales line, then the repeater table is a table for you to use. It's easy to use. You can just drag it into your ForNAV report, set the correct filtering, and ForNAV will do the rest for you. Then we have a bank account selection table. We have heard very often from customers that they have multiple bank accounts in the system and they need to select a bank account based on responsibility center or location or dimension or anything else in the system. So we have created, again, a temporary table for the bank account. It's something that you can use in any ForNAV report, and we've built it into the existing ForNAV reports. If we go into Business Central, you will see that we have the bank account selection table, which is a ForNAV table, where I have added one line for the responsibility center, again, Hamburg, which I've linked into bank account HBL. If I show the details, please note that this is the IBAN DE11HAMS and a couple of numbers, which is not an actual bank account number, so don't pay any money to it, but it is going to help us to see if this all works. So this is for the responsibility center Hamburg, which means that if I open a posted sales invoice, I have all prepared this, obviously. So I have for Hamburger Baderwelt, I have an invoice with responsibility center Hamburg. If I print this invoice, you'll see that the bank account used is the Hamburg bank account. And if we print something for a sales invoice without a responsibility center, the normal company information bank account is being used. Like I said, this is enabled by default on every ForNAV report. Basically, what you have if you open any ForNAV sales report or purchase report, you will find your records collection. There is the bank account, which has been there for a while, and this bank account is a record and it has been set temporary is true. And because this is a temporary table, ForNAV then runs the code that will fill this temporary table for you. We have made the implementation where you can get the bank account based on the bank account selection, and it will also, by the way, work on the default bank account per currency. That's built into the standard. But you can also, if you wanted to, override the ForNAV code altogether and just write your own implementation for the bank account or any other table inside the Business Central database. Then finally, another temporary table that we have inside ForNAV is the item tracking temporary table. That has been inside ForNAV for a while. It was one of the first temporary tables that we've created, also one of the most popular ones, by the way. And this gets the item tracking for any table that has anything to do with item tracking. No, you don't need to think about it. Just grab the item tracking temporary table and ForNAV will do the rest for you. We recently added the package number and the expiration date. Now, of course, I have prepared a little demo for you. Let's go to the ForNAV reports. In the order, you will see that I have the item tracking demo already, but I want to show you how easy you can do this. So let's create a new custom layout. Item tracking live demo. I am going to design this. That gets me a copy of the standard built-in layout for the sales order. I will grab a data item, drop it on top of the line, say tracking specification, nothing else. This tracking specification I'm going to set to temporary, which in this case, because we're on a custom layout, also sets the auto populate to true. And the auto populate, like I said before, tells ForNAV it needs to get the data it needs on the fly. Then I grab the tracking specification and let's use item number, lot number, serial number, package number, and expiration date. Drag them on top of my tracking specification. There we go. Save my layout, and that is it. I will activate my layout for this specific company. That activates my tracking layout. And then obviously I need to see if I have any orders with item tracking in my system, which, as a spoiler, of course I do. That is not the one, this is the one. So in this case, I have a bunch of computers in my system. And if I select the first line, related information, item tracking lines, you will see that I have lot numbers and package numbers, which means that if I now print this report, you'll see report layout number 2 is used, preview. It will automatically print all of my item tracking information with the package numbers and the expiration dates. And ForNAV will do this, like I said, on pretty much anything that has anything to do with items. So I have, for instance, right here, some warehouse documents. I have a warehouse receipt. Which prints the item tracking information, including package number and expiration date. And I have a posted warehouse receipt, which also prints all of the item tracking stuff. And this, if I drill down into this specific layout, works exactly the same, which means that I can also add my tracking specification to a template. For instance, it simply has the tracking specification, temporary set to true, and that's it. So easy enough to add tracking information to any layout you can possibly want. With that, I have reached the end of my bit of today's What's New. If you have any questions about it, please let us know in the question windows. We will answer them later on. Right now, I will pass the baton on to Jakob, who's going to talk about direct printing.
Thank you, Renee. So do you see my screen, Renee?
Yep, I do.
Super. Okay, I will just tell you a little bit about the latest bits and pieces of the direct print and file service solution. I'll try to make it quick, but one of the things that we have seen is that when these installations grow to a specific size, then it's normal that you install more than one service for handling print jobs or file jobs on the local side of your network. And if you install multiple services to handle print jobs, then you can also run into a situation where when two users are printing at the same time, the print jobs don't show up on the printer in the required sequence, so that the print jobs from two users can get mixed. And you can also see that if you are printing just one user but creating some big jobs and some small jobs, that they can come out in a different sequence that you print them in. So we've tried to create a solution to handle this, and let me just give you a quick run through of that. So as I said, this happens when you run the service on multiple locations, or if you run the service with multiple instances on one server. So what we found out is that we need to kind of group the print jobs so that we make sure that everything is sent to the printer as in one go, instead of just sending them as you print, because then other people can come in between your jobs. So the first thing we did was to allow the direct printers to have another initial job status. That means when a printer puts a job on the print queue, it can now put them on the print queue with the on hold status instead of the ready status. Because when jobs have the ready status, then they are automatically picked up by the local service and it will start printing them. But we want to have jobs on hold in the print queue until we're ready to print all of them at the same time. So this is something you set up on the direct printer definition. When you print to a printer that has the initial status set to on hold, this is what you see on the print queue. The jobs will show up in the print queue as they normally do, but the status will be on hold. But you can also see that we have the session ID in here. And the session ID is the user session that is printing these jobs. And we use the session ID to kind of figure out which print jobs belong together. So once we are done printing all the things we want to send to the printer in one go, then we will look for all the jobs with the same session ID and try to group those. So we need to tell it when we are done printing. So let's say we run 3 reports. After running the 3 reports, we need to tell the direct printing system that we are done for this user at the moment, and we want this sent to the printer. So this is just one function call, and you can place this if the print happens maybe from a page, an action on a page. You can place this call in the event that happens on every page when actions are done. So it's pretty simple to add that to your page. The extra parameter you have in here, which is true in this case, is adding extra security that this will actually come out as just one job to the printer, because if this parameter is true, what will happen on the service side is that before this job is sent to the printer, all the PDFs that makes up this job are actually merged together before it's sent. So this will make sure that this is only one job in the print queue. Another thing we added in this recent version is something we call legacy mode printing. We have seen for especially some label printers that they don't support the latest version of printing API in Windows. It's not only older printers, but it's also new printers with old drivers. They require that you print things as an image on the printer instead of sending printing instructions with vector-based printing. So now you can also set on your direct printed definition that it should print as image instead of vector. So this will increase the compatibility with older drivers. Then we have on the files service side, one of the most used functions on the file service is the function that scans directories for files, so that you can get an overview of which files and directories and subdirectories you have on your file shares. We've added some new ways of scanning a directory. Before this release, the only way to scan a directory was to specify a file pattern that you want to scan for. In the first example here with the old syntax, we are scanning for PDF files, but using this filter, we'll also use the filter for subdirectories. So if you're scanning a directory tree, then you will only get the directories that are also named .pdf. So we needed to extend this a little bit. So in the new syntax, you can, of course, the old syntax is still valid, but you can also add the vertical line and then separate the pattern you want for directories and for files. So in this case, it will scan all directory names, but only the PDF files. We also heard from some of our customers that they maybe want to scan for image files, but this includes multiple patterns because image files have different extensions. So we also opened for the possibility of scanning for multiple patterns in the file names, and you do that by separating each pattern by a semicolon. So this is an example of something that will find all the image files. Let me just show you what this looks like in a short demo. So this will do like, I will go and scan for images, and this will show me that I have two aliases defined, and in one of these I have image files, and these are only image files you have in here. And of course, in this dialog, I can click one of them and it will take the image to Business Central and then download it to my client. So, but for some, this wasn't enough. We had some situation where we wanted to be even more specific on what to scan for. So therefore, we also added the functionality to scan using regular expressions. And regular expressions is something that it's a way to define text patterns that will match or not match. It's actually pretty complicated to work with regular expressions, and it's a nightmare to debug them after you define them because they're very hard to read, but they are also extremely powerful in defining text patterns you want to match. So we added functionality to scan using regular expressions as well, and all of these new ways of scanning are documented in the documentation we have for these functions. So you can see, you can find scanning directories, and you can find examples and search patterns. This is what I described: the standard patterns, the multi-patterns, and the regular expressions. Another thing we added in this release is we improved some table logging situations for the print queue. If you have many services and many people printing, we saw in the past that it could introduce some locking issues on the print queue table. So we fixed that. And then in Business Central version 24.5 and 25, Microsoft also changed the way the database caching works. So we saw that sometimes print jobs took a long time to get processed, and especially file operations that only had a timeout of 10 seconds, they timed out. But upgrading to the latest ForNAV extensions will also fix that, and you should be aware of that if you are on 24.5 or 25. Then on the print and file setup page, we added some extra functionality to kind of tweak the performance of the system. This is something you can play around with, or it will more likely be used if you get in contact with our support, and we try to kind of optimize the performance in your particular infrastructure. We also added support for larger files. There's a limitation on how much data you can send using HTTP clients from Business Central. So we added a functionality that can support chunking, where files are chopped up into smaller pieces and being sent in pieces instead. So now we can support larger files than we used to. PowerShell handlers, it's also something that has been in the product for some time. It's we haven't talked that much about it, but PowerShell handlers is it's functionality that uses the same infrastructure as we have for print and for the file service, where we create a connection between a cloud system, Business Central, and then something happening on the local side. So the service can now use these PowerShell handlers to execute code locally, and it can run PowerShell scripts, or it can now also run executable handlers. So with PowerShell scripts, you can actually do pretty much anything, but we ran into situations where PowerShell was disabled in the infrastructure for some reason. And we can also, if we have an executable that does what we need to do on the local side, we can save somewhere around 300 milliseconds in the execution, because we don't have to run the PowerShell runtime. This is also, I will not go into specifics on this, but this is also documented, how to build a handler and how to use this. And I know we also have coffee break videos on the subject. The last thing I'm going to talk about is we added something in the configuration file for direct print called debug level, and this is used to go deeper into what happens in the communication between the file service and print service and Business Central. So if we have like a tough support case, then we can add the debugging level and get more information about what's going on. So that was it for me, and I will turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Jakob. I just have a short demo at the end here, so I'll show my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen, Jakob?
We can.
Good. Okay. So now Jakob talked about the file service, and I'm going to show an example of how we have leveraged that in the report pack. In the old versions of both Business Central and Business Central, a really loved feature was the ability to link to local files from the order page, or for the margin page and custom page, and a lot of other pages. But given that Microsoft moved to the cloud, this is not possible anymore. So you can only link to web addresses on SharePoint, which is a pity. So what we have done is to integrate the link capabilities in Business Central with the local file service. So let's say I want to expose a number of files to my BC. So I have a directory in here, and I can set up in the file service I want to expose this to BC. So that's part of what Jakob talked about. Next thing I need to do is to go to Business Central. First I need to refresh this so I can get it to work. Okay. And then I go to the ForNAV setup. And here. And down here there's a new setting called file access, and you have to enable it, and then you have to select which one is the default file share. It should wake up in a second, so I get the list. So these are the shares I have published, and these can of course be on different machines and different shares. but I'll keep it at this the public files that I can use. Now the next thing is just to use it. So as an example, on the sales order, I can go in and add documents to as attachment. And the beauty of this new feature is that you can have attachment that flows all the way from the quote to the order and so on, and eventually end up in a PDF together with a PDF in the file attachment. But let's go and add some files in here. So I can go and attach this file, and in here you get a dialog now that you can attach a local file or upload a file. So in our case, attaching a local file means that nothing is stored inside BC, only the URL to the file. But I will choose to attach a local file, and then you can see the this is the directory I just showed you. I have my picture up here, and I have different documents. If I have no clue what actually is in document, I can also preview what's in here, and of course I can link this to my order. So I link this, and I can close this, and now I can go and close the attached document, and now it shows up in here. And I can always go and look at this document, and it will flow through my system. And again, this is not stored inside BC, so it doesn't take up any data. That's really a benefit if you have a lot of huge files and you don't want to use storage, or if you also want to maintain them from outside BC, that's another benefit. But yeah, and that's it for now. So you can take over.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Jakob and Renee. We've been a lot around things in the most recent versions. There's one question that we get from time to time that I just want to give an update on here, because people sometimes ask us for a new ForNAV license, especially when they move from DLL to Universal Code, and that is not needed. So as long as you stay on an on-prem version of Business Central, your existing ForNAV license should still be the one. The only time you need a new ForNAV license is when you move to cloud. And here I also want to remind you that we have our upgrade campaign, which is very similar to what Microsoft is offering, where if you have a perpetual license and you have a current enhancement plan, you can have the 40% discount for 3 years. There's a link here where you can read much more about the details of this. And talking about licensing, it has been mentioned a couple of times, but I just want to stress again that we have this all-in-one license. So that means that when you have a ForNAV license, you have full access to all the things we have shown you here. And also we have no transaction cost on any of our services. So with that, we are at the Q&A part. And last time I checked, there were no questions, but maybe Renee or somebody else are more updated on that.
There's no questions, Jan.
Okay. Well, you guys have been good or too boring, but whatever, it's good. So with that, I like to close today. If you want to know more, you can jump to our website. There's a lot of information, including, of course, the download. We have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, including our famous coffee breaks, these 10-15 minute long videos where you can get all the details on a specific topic. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to write to support@fornav.com. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining today, and have a great rest of the day.